Oh, it is. It's been an interesting day to say the least. Oh, some people are. I'll talk about it later if I feel like I'm up to it. But this is part two of where a Gynarchy can come from. And part two is cooperation between Gynarchists. This, of course, has its own issues, which is why I wanted to make the video. And it's because cooperation it is usually seen within a certain context depending on the culture. Like if you have a more gynocentric culture, cooperation doesn't need to be within a context that requires two individuals to conquer some kind of violent opposition. Or to put this another way, if you have like let's say some big badass martial artist motherfucker who can like beat everybody, and it's like the raid situation where you have two guys going up against a clearly superior third opponent. That's not what I'm talking about. Um, what I'm talking about is cooperation that requires individuals to actually do something without involving violence or destruction or any of that other bullshit. And it's very common for people, especially within Western culture and society, to cooperate against some kind of violent external force. You see this in Independence Day. You see this in a lot of movies actually, where people just simply don't understand how to cooperate in these cultures without either creating an enemy that unites them or just unifying against an enemy. And this is actually something that you can see in the history of the United States and how uh, the political parties were able to unify and cooperate when there was some kind of dangerous external opposition, whether that was Nazi Germany or Imperial Japan. Uh, pick your target, and that's where it comes from. And so, why am I bringing that up? Because first of all, we have to establish like how is it that the different gynarchists would cooperate? For example, are women gynarchists cooperating with other women gynarchists? If not, what's holding them back? Is there some kind of androcentric conditioning that is keeping them divided? Um, for instance, is there any racism involved? Is there some kind of deeper issue that is preventing these individuals from getting into a room and saying, look, we don't agree on everything, but we do agree on X, Y, and Z, and maybe we could work together. Okay, well, then what about the male gynarchists? Are they cooperating in any kind of way? And if so, how are they doing that? And this is kind of where you have to get into the whole nitty gritty of how could it work. My personal belief is that the only way it could work, at least on this end of things, is if the gynarchists, uh, if they all agreed on an action plan of some kind, if they dedicated themselves to fixed objectives and worked together towards those fixed objectives, whatever those happen to be, whether that it could be something like encouraging more gynarchists to write intellectual works or professional works that are outside of a fetishistic context, so to speak, and marketing that towards the public. That's one way it could be happening. It could happen in other ways as well, clearly. There's not like a one size fits all. There's a way, I think it's like one size fits all approach. I don't think you're going to have the same solution for every single problem that comes up. But I think that it's something like that. Um, so there's also the issue of like how does the cooperation itself manifest? In other words, is there money involved? As in like is there like money involved? Or also you can have a problem where there's some individual, some gynarchists in the community who genuinely believe the men should just shut the fuck up and not contribute anything at all, and that submissive males should strictly think along the lines of a dominant woman or just do what that dominant woman wants. So if their idea of cooperation is that that is the standard for leadership in the community, and that no one else can deviate from this, so they're a heretic or whatever. Um, I mean, whether they like it or not, what happens when the guy doesn't want to do that? What happens when he has a mistress that's okay with him making videos like this? Well, then you're going to have what's called a schism in your own community, where you have some people saying, this is how you're supposed to do it. You can't do it any other way. And then you're going to have other people going, well, yeah, that's really cute and nice and all, but what about the fact that up until this point, mostly there hasn't been any serious cooperation? In fact, in my personal experience, like when I went to the Gynarchy groups in the Reddit Discord, what I found was, and I talked about this with another individual, a submissive man, um, I found out that I mean, at least I was told that they were alienating submissive men with their very strict rules, their conduct, the way they're talking to these individuals. And it just seems to me like, well, obviously these men are not going to be able to cooperate with you because they feel like there's no place for them, because they feel like they don't fit into your box, so to speak, the paradigm under which you are working. And does that mean that they're automatically useless? If you have the attitude of, well, if you're not with the program, I'm just going to toss you, well, you're just trash. You're nothing. That's dangerous in the community, because there's not a lot of us to begin with. So is that really the correct attitude of, if you're not on board with the program 100%, if you're not doing exactly what you want, you need to just be tossed aside or banned or whatever. And I heard from him that he had actually been kicked out of some groups because of his stances and his opinions. But I've talked to him, and he seems genuine about his beliefs and feelings. I don't know where he is right now. I mean, people have lives, so I mean, when people are gone for even days or weeks, I don't really take it as personally as I used to. I just kind of look at it like you've got something going on. You got a life, you got things. It is what it is. But I also don't blame the person for becoming disillusioned and disenchanted with his community when I've observed that they're just making observations. There's no action plan, there's no forward action, nobody is agreeing on any specific objectives. That's just people observing shit like, hey, some people are into community, like communes or whatever, and other people are like more interested in that state stuff or that federal government stuff. And so I saw that and I was like, yeah, that's really great and all, but what are we going to do? And his question was like this, like, yeah, okay, like basically like, okay, great. That's a nice observation there. That's very and that's very educational. But if you hadn't noticed, we're kind of running out of time to organize, gather our people, and do some shit. Because our environment is becoming uninhabitable. Yeah. So that's a problem. So first, in order to cooperate, there has to be an agreement on how they're going to work together. And then beyond that, we have to figure out what cooperation entails. In other words, are we going to be unified behind some kind of greater enemy, or are we unified towards a common purpose and goal that we both feel will enrich our lives? Because if we don't have if we're not coming from the same place, if we don't share the same kind of like vision, then we're going to have to find a way to cooperate and work together towards some kind of goals, even if we all are looking to achieve different ends. And I don't necessarily know that that's possible. For instance, if one person keeps talking to me about politics and saying, yeah, we need to change the politics, we need to change the state government, the federal government, and I'm focused on community, well, if his goal is to create a Gynarchic political party, and I personally believe that the system is about to collapse, the industrialized society or world is about to collapse, and that there's only going to be communities left, well, we're obviously going to have not only different goals, but we're going to have different ways of achieving our goals. Now, of course, personally, I don't invalidate. If you want to like pursue that goal, I don't stop people and say don't do it. I'm just saying that this is where I'm coming from. I'm very upfront about my approach. And I say, look, this stuff is not going to work for me personally. But if somebody wants to do it, I say all more power to them. Go ahead and do what you feel is right for you. That's kind of where I differ from other Gynarchists. I don't invalidate, I don't tell, and I'm not invalid, but I don't tell any one Gynarchist that their answer is that they shouldn't do it. I don't believe in that. I believe in whatever works, works. That's why I'm a pragmatist. If you do your thing and I do my thing, it turns out your thing is working, then let's go with your thing and see where that goes. I'll still do my thing in my own time with the people I want to talk to, but I'm not going to undermine your project. And me doing my own thing doesn't undermine what you're doing, and what you're doing doesn't undermine what I'm doing. That's my philosophy in a nutshell when it comes to how I believe that people should cooperate if we can't get behind fixed objectives, which is we're just going to have to encourage people to do whatever they think works and then see if the results get us somewhere, anywhere. At least for now, until we can figure something out. Because if we're being really honest here, the number of actual leaders we have is it's about as close as these two fingers can touch, can get together without touching. That's in like grains of sand. There are a few individuals, if any, who have written books, who have actually talked about this stuff in serious, from a serious tone of voice, of who have been serious about their writing. It's difficult. It's hard. And they also know who they're working with. You have to be honest here. We're working with a lot of men and a lot of people who are strictly stuck within a fetishistic mindset. And so from that pool, you're necessarily going to have less people than you think, right? Because you like your first instinct without knowing anything, if you have no experience in the community, if you have no life experience, if you're like some really young kid, you might think, well, hey, if they're into femdom, maybe they're into women running things. But then you approach the femdom community and they're like, well, actually, women have a tendency to frown on this sort of thing in that community, or people have a tendency to frown on this, or people have a tendency to think about Gynarchists this way or that way. And so what you find out is that the pool of men and women from which you can interact with and actually who are taking this step seriously and are looking for meaningful connections from other people in the community is actually it's marginally smaller than what you think it is. And so you have to work with what you have within your community, for good or for ill. I think that I can pretty much stop here because the next video is going to concern radical feminists, Gynarchists, and other pro-women groups cooperating with each other and what that cooperation entails. But I feel like this is kind of where it could. Now, how could it come about, right? I'm going to keep it really simple. Let's say I am a Gynarchist and I meet other Gynarchists, and we all basically get together and say, look, whatever our circumstances are, we're brothers and sisters. We're sisters and brothers. And so we just decide to keep in contact and maybe live near each other. Well, if I'm living around 10 or 20 Gynarchists, I've already got a community. It might not necessarily be the kind of community that I've written about or structured in my templates or in my system or whatever, but that's still a community. And things can grow, things that are big can grow from something that is small. For example, if you look at every religion, it started with, or religion or different like big concepts, they started from one person asking a question or being inspired by something or writing things down, and other people going, you know what, I like that. So it all has to start from somewhere. So even just meeting 10 or 20 people, that can grow into something much, much bigger over time if there is serious interaction and dedication to it. Even if it's, online. But when it becomes offline, of course, it's going to manifest and it's going to be something different. But that's kind of how, where could it come from? How could it come from? Once you have that connection there, once enough people are not just engaging with each other for intellectual discussions, but they're actively part of each other's lives, then you have another ballpark. Then you already have you already have a Gynarchic community. The question is, how much further can you develop that while it is that you're alive? How can you enrich and add to that? So that's where a Gynarchic society and community, or Gynarchic, even just Gynarchic system, could stem from. It could stem from something like that. Just from people beginning in cooperation and then becoming friends and having discussions and being part of each other's life, even helping each other out with certain problems. So I hope that that's answered that question, and I hope that I've made that clear. I hope you guys have a I hope sorry, not guys. I hope it's a habit. I hope everyone has a great day.